Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Kelly Young Voter Report, sponsored by the Progressive Democrats of Benicia. Today, I have with me Thomas Bilbo from the Stonewall Democrats and Solano Pride Center. And I guess getting right into it, there's been a there's recently been a spate of anti-transgender bills making their way around state legislatures. And while the bills do vary in specifics, many of them have targeted trans youth's access to medical care and school facilities. Could you please explain for the audience why these are especially harmful?
Well, it's especially harmful, especially mostly because of the age of the individuals that they are targeting. They're targeting people who are going through a lot of hormonal changes, and by limiting access to the medical care that they need, they cannot get the hormone replacement therapy or the drugs that will suppress their hormone hormone expression coming out for their birth gender versus the gender that they are to themselves. So it's especially hurtful because those those bills that they cut off access, and it's not from a standpoint of like regular insurance companies, but it's from the assisted care or the state-run agencies. They cut that kind of care off from those individuals. Plus, it also stops a lot of, it could hinder doctors from administering that care because there are certain penalties involved, but a lot of doctors are doing the right thing and going ahead and giving the care that's needed.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about some of the specifics of these bills. I believe in Missouri, isn't there? I believe it's Missouri. Isn't there a section of their bill that would require school counselors to tell parents if their child exhibits gender nonconformity or something like that?
Yes, yeah, and it not just exhibits, but also just expresses it. So like if they express in like wearing tomboyish clothes or anything like that, the the school or the teacher could, call the parents and be like, hey, do you know that so and so is wearing clothes or that are not fitting to their gender?
Well, isn't it
As well as
mandated as well?
I I'm not as familiar with that one. I'm not sure if it's mandated, but I think it's like more of a suggested and a requirement from a standpoint of them being considered a good teacher. So it could go
Right,
into job reviews and stuff.
right, for sure. And then another one I found just especially absurd was I heard the Florida one, it would require genital inspections for um
For sports
women in
teams.
sports teams. I just
Hmm.
where does someone like get off like thinking that that will, create a better society, right?
So they, you know, the only way I can think of it is that it's, to be honest, I have no idea where they think that that would create a better society.
Like even
Because
just thinking about it from the perspective of someone who from the perspective of these people, right? Where does that factor in, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How is that justifiable, right?
To do an inspection, yeah.
Right.
Um, you know,
It just seems absurd. Like, why would anyone want
and
to
why would
do
a
that?
parent
Especially,
allow their kid to be subjected to that? No,
right.
no
And
parent would allow that.
right. And I think what's especially ironic is that the GOP is going around calling anyone they don't like pedophile, pedophile, pedophile. And here they are, pushing
Opening them
literal
up.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, because if you look at a lot of that kind of stuff, the people who are the most prominent for pedophilia and stuff are the people in positions of power.
Right.
And like what was it with the Olympic doctor, with a doctor at a college for the wrestling team, I forget the name of the university, but I mean, that was all done
I think it
by
was
people
Penn
who were
State.
in, yeah, yeah, it was, yeah, I think so. And it was all done by people who were in a position of power to work with these youth. And what they're doing with this is opening it up to where those very same individuals could have that. Now, I'm not saying all of them are that way, but it's such a intrusive kind of thing for these young
Right.
kids that it's like, why would you open them up for that? But yet they also want to talk about the sovereignty of marriage and all this kind of stuff, and yet
Right.
there's so many
Right.
things that are going like opposite of each other. It's crazy.
Right. So moving on, LGBT youth make up 7% of the total youth population, but make up an astoundingly disproportionate 40% of the total youth homeless population. Can you
Mhm.
explain to the audience why this is? And in your experience at the Solano Pride Center, has COVID exacerbated this trend?
So it has exacerbated it in the fact that these children, these kids, have not been able to get the care they need in a fashion because of the lockdown and that kind of stuff. But it also has opened up those same kids to the fact that their parents found out that they may be LGBT because they were spending so much time at home.
Mhm.
So the kids had no outlet, meaning like school or something like that. And so the parents were there locked down with them and everything else. So it just opened everything up. We had some of our youth group where they would actually have to go outside the home to call into one of our virtual youth group meetings,
Mhm.
because they used to make their way to the Pride Center and have that outlet, that area where they could do it, but they were still looking to do that, but they were like, no, I can't call in or be on a Zoom call with all these other kids that are expressing their gender, etc. And that way. Now, as far as why there's such a disproportionate makeup of homeless youth that are LGBTQ, well, it's quite frankly, it's because parents are shits and they kick their kids out.
Yeah.
I mean, that they find out that they're not normal, so they kick them out and make them uh, homeless, and they have to surf couches, or they drop into the sort of human trafficking situations, just to make it, to get a meal and get someplace that may be safe to sleep.
Mhm.
So
And
that is sort of the reason there. And the other, I think another thing is they also, because they don't have a stable family life, a lot of them don't have access like to the typical education scenario where, go to school, go to high school, graduate, and go on to college. Well, they're immediately, because they've been disowned by the family, they're cut off from a lot of that stuff. They may not have a place to study. They may not have a place to complete their everything that is
schoolwork,
related to high school and to move on.
indeed. And I guess on that bombshell, the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly caused crises of mental health for many, but especially LGBT youth. In a Trevor Project survey, 62% reported feelings of depression, and 80% of respondents reported feeling that COVID had made their living situation worse. Once again, has this been the case in your experience working with LGBT youth? And do you have any advice for anyone, since this is the Kelly Young Voter Report, for
Yeah.
anyone experiencing something like that?
So, one, I do not directly work with youth. I work with
Okay.
I am the chairman of the board of Solano Pride, and I work on getting money. But our youth program manager and our coordinator and the other volunteers that do work with them, one, they are all, they've been vetted through the background checks and all that kind of stuff. So what I would say to a kid that's trying to find a place to have a talk with someone, uh, um, along those lines, is to
Hmm.
reach out to solanopride.org, and our youth coordinator, Jamie, has actually been through exactly what they're going through. He grew up in Kentucky, and he knows everything that's going on with how kids are treated and how they become homeless and everything like that. So he has a very good story there related to knowing what they're going through. So he's been through it. He knows what happens to these kids, and he has a very big heart. And then he has also people working with him that are helping the kids and stuff as well. We have our clinic. We have a clinic, mental health clinic that they can reach out to and get support for free of charge. And the youth group sessions. We have a trans youth group session on Thursdays, and then a all-inclusive youth group session on Fridays.
And is that in person or over Zoom?
It's over Zoom right now, but we are opening up. Like we actually have employees back into the center, but I'm not quite sure when we're going to actually open up to in-person meetings, but it'll probably be in the July timeframe.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess the last question I have for you is recently, with the addition of 3 new justices to the Supreme Court, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty about not just the future of trans rights, but the future of gay rights, lesbian rights, and bisexual rights. What could you sort of outline what these are and what the risks are with a conservative majority on the court of 63?
So the biggest problem with the conservative majority on the court, besides all the potential violations of individual rights, not just for LGBT, but also for women, I think is that they have the power to nullify laws that are there to protect people. They have the power to not protect people by ruling against complainants that come before the court seeking some sort of relief in the form of or like against these transgender bills, because the transgender bills that the states are passing for the youth, they are targeting youth that have that are different and that have these gender expressions that are different from the way they are born. There is no doubt in my mind they are simply targeting these youth. And so one form of relief could be to go to the state Supreme Court, see if it can get knocked down, and then eventually it winds up at the Supreme Court. And whenever it goes there, we're probably going to see decisions that are going to come not so much in favor of what we would like to see. Now, as far as like gay rights and LGBT, lesbian rights and bisexual rights and transgender rights for adults, I think we'll see a lot of those be challenged, because you have a lot of state legislatures that are conservative and also state attorney generals who think that, oh, now we have this conservative court, so let's challenge the hell out of all this stuff and take it to the Supreme Court and see if they'll knock down, so we don't have to put up with these people. So that's where we're going to see, just like what they're doing with voter suppression laws across the country in states, you're going to see that. Now, what we need to have happen is we need some of the Democrats that are not playing ball to grow a spine, get a pair, and make sure that we can kill the filibuster in the Senate so we can get some meaningful voter reform through, meaningful equal rights for through, because the Equal Rights Amendment are for LGBT is still stalled. So as long as we get those things through, I think we'll see it won't go to the court, because at the federal it'll be different. And so that's
and just one more thing, could you give an example of some of the cases that these conservative legislatures and attorney generals would be looking to overturn?
So gay marriage is one of them. Any Republican legislature in all the different states that has a bent against gay people, which unfortunately is probably most of them, they would be looking to have that overturned. I think, whenever that happens, I want to sue for having divorce overturned. So if you marry someone, you either die to get out of it or you live a happy life. So let's make sure divorce. So all these legislatures and stuff, let's talk about that. But that would be something that they would take up because it's very recent and it's something that has sweeping changes. And we saw all the pushback like into Kentucky and a few other places where they said, oh no, I'm not doing that because it's against my religion. Okay, well, your religion stops where your public service begins.
Exactly.
So, I have another shirt that I wear that says, democracy doesn't notice your deity.
Exactly.
And that's, whenever we're talking about people's rights, their rights to religious freedom ends whenever it impedes on my rights as an individual to live a happy life. Because it says in the Constitution, or in the preamble rather, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And by doing these, by invoking these laws, we are seeing that they are impacting the pursuit of liberty, the right of life, and the pursuit of happiness. And they're, so they're taking away liberties. They're taking away the potential for a youth, a transgender youth, to be happy in their own body. They're taking away the potential for someone to live a life and they'll commit suicide because they can't do it. They can't suppress what is their natural state. Because a lot of people think, oh, their natural state is what they're born with. No, the natural state is what you have up here.
Right. As far as scientifically proven.
Yeah.
That's scientifically proven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can disagree with it all you want, but the science says it is possible for someone to be born in a body that conflicts with their gender, right? You can come up with all the reasons you want for it. It doesn't matter. The science says otherwise.
Exactly. But we are dealing with people that said masks weren't required. We're dealing with people that said COVID is a hoax. We're dealing with people that aren't getting vaccinated because they don't want Bill Gates's chip in their arm. People, they have detached themselves from reality in a lot of aspects. So when you start saying science says, they're going to be like, well, that's your opinion. Right. And it's like, right. When did we become a nation that said science is an opinion versus a fact? Right. Your religious belief, that's your right and your opinion, because everyone can have a different religious belief. But science, 2 + 2 is always 4. Right. And that you can't get away from that.
For sure. And I guess the last thing would be sorry, I'm having a total mind blank here. The last thing would be I guess it's ironic too, because these protections, right? I mean, you talk about the Equal Rights Amendment, right? I mean, that has sweeping support in every poll that's been done for it, right? I mean, these are politicians that are trying to force the will of a minority, right? A minority that doesn't want civil rights, civil liberties onto the majority, right? That's ultimately what this is, right? Even among straight people, right, who have been polled on this, I think it was 70-80% came out in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment. 60 to 70% oppose these new spate of bills that have been being introduced in legislatures all across the country that impede on trans rights, right? So I think ultimately not only is it anti-civil rights, but it's anti-democratic.
Well, I mean, look at the voter reform bills that they're passing. Right. Yeah, they are not. They're not interested in democracy. What they are interested in is pandering to their base. So by not supporting HR 5, the Equality Act, they are saying that, okay, we don't care about anything. related to democracy. What we do care about is making sure our base gets us in or reelects us in the primaries. But what I'm hoping and, like wishing and praying and saying chants, whatever I have to do, will happen is that people will remember. And it's up to the Democratic Party, and it's also up to, you and I, to make sure people remember that these people, when it came down to it, the people in their state legislatures, I keep messing up that word, and the people in Congress have been acting against the will of the people. And unless we stand up and say no more and throw them all out and elect people that are there for democracy, there to actually do what they have sworn an oath to do, which is to protect the US Constitution, to make sure that people have the right to life, liberty, and happiness. If we don't do that, then we're just going down this path. But I think, and I believe more people will stand up and say no.
Well, and I've said this before.
Election cycle.
Oh, for sure. And I've said this before, but they know they can't win, right? So instead of changing their policies to those that are more amicable to the majority of the electorate, they cheat and they try to change the rules. So, oh, well, you can't hand out pizza to people in line to vote, right? You can't, polls are only open from this time to this time on this day on a full blue moon, right? I mean, right. And I think in a poll, right, we're talking about polling, I think it was 60% of Republicans polled said that they would rather change the laws surrounding elections to make it harder to vote than make their policies more amicable to the electorate.
Yeah, and what I will say is that is not like the average. I don't think that is the normal Republican voter. I think that is more the what they call the base, the minority in the party. But a lot of these the people who are currently elected, they can't see past their own primaries. So they want to make sure that they're reelected, and the people that they're pandering to are the ones that really turn out to vote in the primary. Right. So that's where Republicans, if they want their party back, they need to turn out the vote in primaries and vote against the people who are currently sitting there and get people in there who actually make common sense and who want to work for the will of the people and want to be part of the democracy that is the United States and coming to common ground. Until that happens, we're just going to be constantly in this cycle. And so I'm hoping that 2022, we're going to see another record turnout, because I think, we finally have gotten it to the point where people have said, if I don't vote, we're going down. So, I mean, we had the largest turnout ever, not just in size of number of voters, but also in percentage at this last election. And that was because there was a lot of crap going on, and there's still a lot of stuff going on that people are going to be interested in voting and making sure things happen in the right way.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Bilbo. Love to have you again. And once again, thank you so much to the Progressive Democrats of Benicia for having us. Be sure to tune in next time. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.